Welcome, everybody, to the Budhole breakdown of the 2020 NFL Draft.
This is where we are breaking down day dose of the NFL Draft. Insert sponsor here.
Possibly you.
You really don't have to pay us too much. We use Snickers wrappers, Subway sandwiches, gift cards to gas stations. We're simple people, whatever you want.
We'll
give you a shout out.
cigarettes.
Oh, yeah, I love half-burned cigarettes.
Tonight, I felt like fatigue set in a little bit for everybody. You even noticed by the end of the third round, Roger Goodell had resorted to sitting in his lazy boy with his feet up, reading the cards off.
I'm just glad he kept his pants on.
Well, I'm sure he thought about taking them off, but I'm sure somebody on that camera crew was like, no, don't do that.
Odd enough story. When I was on my way home, I grabbed a trailer to do some lawn care tomorrow. No big deal. Whatever. Pulling through the loop driveway, and I pull in, and I look in my brother-in-law's garage, and I'm talking to my wife on the phone. I'm like, Jesus, Nick, put your pants on. Stop jerking off in your garage. He was in his garage in his underwear, and he heard that the truck was coming down the driveway. He tries to throw them on real quick. It's funny. Ironically, he had his pants off just like Goodell did. So, long story short.
The shit you run into when you live 50 feet away from your brother-in-law.
Pretty much.
Well,
but I agree. Fatigue kind of set in a little bit. The virtualness of it kind of drew it out a little bit. I don't know. It doesn't quite beat when everybody's up there. Obviously not everybody goes to the, second, third round, but it seemed like a lot of the clips were starting to get to more of like their personal stories, instead of highlight films. You got a lot more of, their background and where they came from and the adversity they faced on the way to college and through it and, whatnot. So it was still good. I still enjoyed it, but day two is always slower than day one, and tomorrow is going to be even slower than today. So just how it goes.
Yeah, I would say, especially the beginning of round two tonight, there was certainly still fireworks. You had a run on wide receivers kind of right away there at the top of the second round. You have what I would say
went total in the second round.
Yeah, so the wide receiver group really got hit hard in the second, and people were saying this was one of the deepest receiving groups in NFL draft recent history. So it's no surprise that teams started gobbling them up. I'm glad that Green Bay decided that it was a good idea to now draft a backup running back after they drafted a backup quarterback. So I'm happy with the draft just from that alone, aside from what the Vikings did.
I think honestly that's probably the best draft that the Vikings have even had. The Packers shooting themselves in the foot, picking Jordan Love, who doesn't help them right now, and then going and picking who's the running back they even took in the second round? AJ Dillon.
Yeah,
AJ Dillon to pair up with who they already have, Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, who was considered a top 5 running back last year. So what are you doing? You need another receiver to go on the other side of Devontae Adams. I'm sorry, but what are even the fucking names of their wide receivers? That's how bad they are. There's the one tall guy who can't hold on to the ball, and then there's the other ones that he throws to sometimes. So it's Devontae Adams. That's all he has. So get him another receiver. It was thick with wide receivers. You fucked that one up, Green Bay, but good.
Well, they kind of drew their line in the sand last night when they decided it was a good idea to move up and get a quarterback. We kind of touched on it last night, so we won't get too far into that. But for them to decide to give up a fourth to get up and get the quarterback, it's kind of like, all right, they're not – you almost wonder if they feel like, yeah, we made it to the NFC title game, but that team that beat us was so much better than us that let's take this draft and kind of reload. Because – Green Bay was not in the championship game. San Francisco was much better than them, really in every aspect besides maybe quarterback. But they were so much better than them that it didn't matter.
And I agree. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I was saying that they're not that good since the beginning of the year last year. They had a lot of close games, and I feel like they got lucky on a lot of those games. So I saw on national media today, Stephen A. was saying that Aaron Rodgers, if he was Rodgers, he'd be demanding a trade. He wouldn't want to stay in an organization that, since he's been drafted, I heard him say they haven't taken a first-round offensive player since he's been drafted. Now, I don't know if that's – I know it hasn't been a wide receiver and a running back or a tight end. I don't know if O-line is included in that. But I know they have not gotten a skills position on offense in a first round, anywhere in the first round since he's been drafted. And that's just nuts. Like, he's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, and you're doing nothing to support him. It's honestly, it's a tragedy for him, but they're on the opposite side of my team, so I don't really care.
Well, it's the whole adage of the Vikings got better by they could have literally not drafted and gotten better because all the teams in the division haven't done enough. I mean, the Lions haven't done anything to close the gap.
The Bears took Cole Kmet, and so he was one of the top-rated tight ends. I think the top-rated tight end. So they did get a solid player there, but they're still in that fucking quarterback battle. Who knows what's going to happen? Is it going to be Trash Bisky, or is Big Dick Nick going to come in and take the realm? And either way, they haven't gotten that much better. Jaylon Johnson was a solid pickup for them. They got him pick 50. So
yeah,
I do like that one.
Jaylon Johnson doesn't move the meter on wins. And
no,
that quarterback situation, you're not going to close in on the Vikings, assuming the Vikings win another 10 games. Really quick regarding the Green Bay draft picks, it's been no offensive skills positions because they did draft Bulaga in 2010 at offensive tackle, and they drafted the following year Derek Sherrod, who's an offensive tackle, in 2011. Outside of that, it's been all defensive players drafted up to Jordan Love.
Okay, so 2 offensive linemen in what has he been playing, 15 years since he's been drafted?
2005, yeah.
Yeah. Still, you're not doing anything to support the guy. I mean, they passed up on a lot of good first-round talent that they could have gotten. Good wide receivers, good running backs, good tight ends. They missed out.
Now, in Green Bay's defense, while they had Brett Favre, they only drafted 2 skills players on offense. They drafted Bubba Franks in 2000 and Javon Walker in 2002. So they've not been historically a team that goes offense early.
Well, and look at it. It's sad. They've had 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in NFL history and have won 2 Super Bowls with them.
Yeah.
I think we've already talked about this, but the Mannings both won 2. Tom Brady has won 2. Russell Wilson has got 1. I mean, there's been plenty of guys that, like, Eli Manning is not considered to be better than Aaron Rodgers, and he's got more Super Bowls than him. So they've had a good run, but at the end of the day, you haven't been winning that many Super Bowls with your guys. I feel like they could have done a hell of a lot better, and if you would have drafted some offensive playmakers, maybe that changes things.
Yeah, and they kind of fall victim into the whole idea of, oh, we have a quarterback that can make a 4th-round wide receiver something. So they don't put as big of a focus on it. However, I would say, with that being said, that's true, but it's kind of like John Lynch has been saying, let's take our strengths and make them stronger.
No.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, you put fucking glitter on a turd, it's still a piece of shit.
Exactly. You might make them functional, but you're not making life any easier on your quarterback.
No. And he's got to elevate that much better to just stay serviceable, to keep their heads above water. And let's be real, both Favre and Rodgers carried those teams through a lot of ugly years to make them decent teams.
Well, let's even take it another step farther. It's not like either of those quarterbacks have had 2000 Baltimore Ravens defenses every year with them. The year that Rodgers won the Super Bowl, his defense was pretty good. And last year their defense was pretty good. But we're not talking legendary defense. Last year's Packers defense was a good, solid, serviceable defense. It wasn't anything special.
For their organization, for them to play, it was like top half defense. They played well, above average on certain games, and they played average on most. So they weren't even like a top 5 defense. They were just maybe top 10. And just to think them having a top 10 defense got them that far. Imagine if they would have been able to put that together even half the amount of years that Rodgers has been starting for them. They probably got another Super Bowl win. He was that good in his prime.
Yeah, and it's like we're saying, you put a lot of pressure on your quarterback to draft defense and, quite frankly, bust on a lot of your picks. I mean, under Rodgers, they've drafted A.J. Hawk, who was an okay linebacker, not a first-round caliber linebacker. They drafted B.J. Raji, who was a very bad defensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Perry's been a serviceable defensive end. In 2013, they drafted Dayton Jones, who was an absolute burnout.
He was a bust.
2014, they went and drafted Clinton Dix, who's been okay, but not lived up to the first-round spot.
He's been on – it's his third team now. He's been bouncing around, and that's only been 6 years, 5 years?
Yeah, 2014, so 6 years.
Yeah.
Then in 2015, they go and draft Demarius Randall, who's pretty solid. He's pretty good. 2016, Kenny Clark, who's an absolute stud, but he's a nose tackle. How much does he really move the meter? Jagger Alexander, the verdict is still out. He's shown he can play. Rashawn Gary, I know nothing about as far as how he's worked out. He was drafted last year. I don't think he was anything special last year, but it's too early to judge him. And then they also drafted Darnell Savage last year. So they don't have a great track record of drafting defense, and they're not helping out their quarterback on offense. So you kind of are stuck between a rock and a hard place as far as the position you put your quarterback in when you go and draft a backup when your quarterback has said he wants to play into his 40s.
Yeah, and for him to get, the third offensive playmaker drafted in the first round wasn't even to help him out. It was to kick him out of town. So if I were him, I'd be pretty fucking pissed. And he's definitely a guy that likes to voice his opinion.
And another thing that I had read today is, so you're going to draft Love, develop him, and then start him for Rodgers in maybe 3 years he'll become your starter. You just burned up 2 or 3 years of his rookie contract, which is when quarterbacks are the most reasonably priced.
And so that's when you have the opportunity to put the most playmakers around you to win. Once you pay a guy Russell Wilson money or what Patrick Mahomes is most likely going to make, you lose the ability to keep top-end talent at other positions that you need. Look at the Vikings. We didn't even pay Kirk Cousins top-end dollar, and we're struggling hard. Granted, we have a lot of other big contracts that have hurt us as well, but Cousins is a big one on that. And so for them to get Love for 2 years, and then he's going to go through growing pains as a starter. And so by the time you actually maybe have a serviceable quarterback, you're likely looking at having to give him a contract extension. And you don't even know if he's going to be able to make that step in year 3 of starting. I don't know. It's a risky move.
Well, on top of that, too, the last thing I'll add to this, Talker, is the weight that you put when you do that. You give your quarterback his big contract. You put a lot of stress on your management, your general manager and your head coach to draft well. And Green Bay has shown they don't draft well. So with that being said, it's not a big concern. I think we'll be okay here in Purple Country. Another big thing coming out of the draft that I noticed, especially early on, was there was a kind of a run on running backs. And we should deep dive this a little bit here right now, because I feel like what I thought about certain running backs from how much I liked them perspective, we're talking fantasy, we're talking overall, has changed a lot just because of the places that they got picked at tonight.
Definitely. 100% agrees.
We'll start out with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who got picked last night at pick 32. Him going to Kansas City, in my opinion, puts him, without a doubt, the number one running back coming out of this rookie class. Whether you're looking at just top, most likely to compete for Rookie of the Year as well as a fantasy perspective, he's the number one rookie running back in my mind in fantasy because he goes to Kansas City. And he wasn't my number one running back coming into the draft.
placement means a lot, man.
It does.
Where players get picked and drafted at, they may not be the top end talent, but they could have the most production depending on
Yeah,
where they go.
it means everything. Um, so then you look at the next running back that gets picked. DeAndre Swift goes to Detroit, and quite frankly, that absolutely tanks all of my hopes for him, especially from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, and Kerryon Johnson, there's fans of him out there. I know Gager's a big fan of him, traded a lot to get him in the Dynasty League, and now look at him. Banged up at the end of last year, had high hopes for him, performed decent while he played, and then got hurt for a majority of the season. Now they draft Swift, and it's not like they drafted Swift at the end of the second, and they saw an elite talent that they thought was maybe first-round talent sitting there late. They drafted him with the third pick in the second round. Like, it's a high pick for a running back. And that just tells me one of two things. Either Kerryon's not healthy, and they don't think that he's going to be able to manage a full season load, or Kerryon's not healthy, and they don't think that he's going to be able to manage a full season load. I think they're ready to move on from him.
And I will tell you this, just from an eye test perspective, if they are both healthy, which we know Kerryon struggles with that, DeAndre Swift is a better running back than Kerryon Johnson. It absolutely kills Kerryon Johnson's upside potential in fantasy, especially in a dynasty league. And so, really quick, just to back up, everybody in our dynasty league, and you can vouch for it, absolutely ripped me when I traded Kerryon, Brandon Cooks, trying to remember. I traded Damian Williams.
Yeah.
I traded a lot to get pick one in last year's draft, in which I turned that into Josh Jacobs. I'm the one laughing right now.
Yeah, I mean, Cooks is going to Houston, which is a decent landing spot for him. I'm not going to lie on that one. But even last year, it was his worst year statistically as a wide receiver playing in the league. He had like 42 grabs, about 500 yards, and maybe 4 touchdowns, if that.
It was something like that.
Serviceable, but it was not very good. Kerryon hurt most of the year. Damian Williams, you lost that, but in reality, I'd much rather have Josh Jacobs, obviously, than Damian Williams. So at this point in time, you won that trade. Fair and square.
But, so DeAndre Swift, it hurts his fantasy value. It definitely tanks Kerryon's. It's a bad situation for both of them. The next player that ended up getting drafted at running back then, 6 picks later, is at number 41, Indianapolis drafts Jonathan Taylor. Personally, I don't think it hurts Jonathan Taylor's value at all, but it does hurt Marlon Mack's value a lot. I think both can be successful behind that offensive line, but it definitely hurts Marlon Mack's value. I think Jonathan Taylor's a better running back.
I think he's going to take over that starting job, and could even be day one. Taylor had a very good college career. He ran a fast 40. I think it was a sub 4.4. It's like a 4.38 or something like that.
I'll look it up really quick, but yeah, it was around there.
It was speedy. He had 2 years in college where he had over 2,000 yards. He's quick. He's good on his feet. And he's 220 pounds. He's a big back with a lot of explosiveness. I just don't see it. I like Marlon Mack. He had a really good year, but I don't see how Jonathan Taylor is not taking over that starting role.
Yeah, I completely agree.
It's good for Rivers. Like, Rivers has now got, not to mention that, if I scroll up here, the Colts had the second pick. They made a trade back last year, got the pick from Washington. They took Michael Pittman, another solid pick to put around Rivers. So even if Rivers doesn't pan out and they end up drafting a quarterback next year, whatever the deal is, they're going to have Pittman and they're going to have Taylor both together and for quite a while. So they hit it on the second round. It was a very good second round for them.
And quite frankly, I think they've constructed a team around Phillip Rivers that I think Phillip Rivers would have dreamed of having his entire career. They have an absolute top 3 offensive line. Now they have 2 good running backs, and they also have weapons on the outside with T.Y. They bring in Pittman.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an offensive core, I think, that fits Rivers very well.
And their first-round pick, they got DeForest Buckner. I mean, They could have gotten Javon Kinlaw, which would have been a solid pick too. But Buckner has proven he can do it. He's been in the league. He's very good. He's big. He's physical, can get after the quarterback. Like, they hit it with their draft. I know they didn't technically draft him, but that's what they used their pick on, and it's a solid pick. You can't argue with that.
No, you really can't. And I think that AFC South is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year between Tennessee, Indy, and Houston. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Well, come on. Minshew. Jacksonville, baby.
Duval.
They got Chenault, too. They got Chenault in the second round.
That's true.
So they added another wide receiver there, and they helped their defense out yesterday. I don't think that they're contenders, but they'll be fun to watch.
And you never know. Minshew magic was something last year. We'll see if he still got it this year. Next up, the Los Angeles Rams decided that they were going to select Cam Akers, running back from Florida State. I'll be the first to admit I'm not super familiar with this guy, but I would also say that the Rams he walks into a very good situation to be productive, and that intrigues me.
So the pick analysis that I'm reading here on him says he's an underrated back with outstanding vision, balance, and body control. He's a third down back with big play potential, particularly in the passing game. Could excel as the lead RB in Sean McVay's scheme. So sounds like he's a good fit for their system. Seems like a little bit more of a scat back than a lead horse, but a good third down back for Jared Goff. Now, is that a glaring need that they needed for their first pick in the second round? I don't know. Could they have probably got him a few picks later if they wanted to, and could they have drafted J.K. Dobbins instead? Yeah, but whatever. They got their guy, I guess.
Well, he's their first pick in the draft, so.
Who'd you rather have, Cam Akers or J.K. Dobbins?
Personally, I'm the first to admit I'm a biased Ohio State homer, and I watch a lot of Ohio State, so I know their players well. And what I know of J.K. Dobbins, I like him in the NFL. And if you're drafting Akers to be what his profile says he should be, as kind of a third down, scat back, J.K. Dobbins is everything Akers is going to be for them, plus he would have been more. But J.K. Dobbins is not the kind of guy that would ever be in my opinion, a three-down back and stay healthy in the NFL. He's going to need a workhorse to go along with him.
Well, Dobbins was the next running back taken
yes,
just 3 picks later by the Ravens. And obviously, from the kind words you just said about him, he's a very good pick.
Well, he's a perfect pick for them. They have Ingram to be the workhorse, and he fits into that offense perfectly. I absolutely love what Baltimore did tonight, rounding out that offense to go along with Dobbins. They added that wide receiver in the third round. What's his name? I'll find it here quick. But Devin DuVernay.
Okay.
He's very, very fast, super fast. He had one of the highest 40 times of the wide receivers. So they're adding a lot of speed and a lot of explosiveness to that offense, which quite honestly, that offense needs some.
It was fast. Hollywood Brown was explosive. Lamar Jackson, obviously. Mark Andrews was decent. But the rest of them, they weren't necessarily over-the-top speed burners. So I like Dobbins there. I think Mark Ingram had a good year last year, but I think he really strived when he had another running back that could take the pressure off of him like Kamara did when he was playing in New Orleans. So Dobbins being able to take, some of the workload and keep him fresh is only going to be better for that entire team. Not even just Ingram, but the whole team in general.
Definitely. There was obviously other running backs taken. A.J. Dillon, we already touched on, went to Green Bay. But those were kind of the big ones that were taken early. So I'm okay kind of leaving it there. Another notable pick was the first one that kind of, I would say it shocked me, quite frankly. The Philadelphia Eagles decided that it was in their best interest in the second round to draft Jaelyn Hertz, quarterback Oklahoma, to back up Carson Wentz. Or maybe push him for the starting job.
It was a shocking pick when I saw that. We were watching a little bit behind. We did rewind and pause to take a picture and then start the show back up. And we were behind. So I did get the notification on my phone before they actually announced it on the TV. But I was shocked when it happened. Jaelyn Hertz seemed like somebody, maybe they could have gotten in the third if they wanted him. But you just signed Wentz to a big contract. I know he's been having issues staying healthy. But at the same time, when he can play and he's there all 16 games, he still played damn good last year. And he didn't even have a fucking receiver core. I could have went out there and played for the Eagles, and God damn it, I should have. They didn't have anybody, and you can't blame that on Wentz. And the way he got hurt at the end of the year last year in that playoff game, it, to me, was a cheap shot by Clowney. So how he's getting hurt isn't necessarily just taking normal hits and getting hurt. They're kind of out of the ordinary ways. Drafting Hurts, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think it really helps your team out that much.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, man. I don't know. Sometimes teams, I think, in the draft, they kind of pigeonhole themselves into making a move for a certain player that they fall in love with, that it just doesn't always make sense. I mean, Jaelyn Hertz is, I guess you could say in a lot of ways, he's like Carson Wentz, but he's a lot different. He's got a big arm, but he's very stiff. People like to compare him to like a Lamar Jackson. He's no Lamar Jackson. His athleticism, I don't even think is as good as Russell Wilson's, and his instincts are nothing like Russell Wilson's. He's got a long ways to go. They drafted him in the second round, hoping maybe in 3 years he could either be the starter for them if Carson Wentz doesn't work out, or they could trade him for a first probably. I don't know. But for a team like them that needs some youth injected into that roster, it's very surprising to me that they decided to go and take Jaelyn Hertz in the second round. I think drafting a quarterback in the fourth or fifth maybe to be a backup to Wentz makes sense, but a second-round pick on a project like Hertz it's almost as big a head scratcher, quite honestly, as Jordan Love in the first last night, regardless of who took him. It just happened to be Green Bay. It's hard. The only teams that, in my mind, you could really justify like a Jordan Love or a Jaelyn Hurts going to are teams like maybe Tampa, who has Tom Brady for probably 2 years and then he's done, you know?
Yeah. Or maybe a New Orleans to back up Breeze for a year, maybe 2 years, and then take over the starting job.
Exactly. Or Andy, who's going to have Phillip Rivers for a year, maybe two. A team like that. I mean, Carson Wentz is literally, if he ends up being a long-time player and a starter in this league and everything Philly wants him to be, his career is literally just starting.
Yeah, and he's not that old. He was only drafted, this is his fifth year, maybe?
Coming into his fifth year, I believe, yeah.
So coming into his fifth year, quarterbacks don't hit their prime until they're like 28 to 32, you know? And the really good ones still play at a high level until they're mid to late 30s. So you still could have another 10 good years of Wentz if you can keep him healthy. I mean, they lost Peters. I felt like you could have maybe picked up an additional offensive lineman at this spot to help protect Wentz. I know who they drafted last night, Jalen Rager. He's going to be a solid wide receiver, but the one guy you picked up does not make up for the 6 guys that were terrible last year. It just doesn't. They should have gotten a playmaker, and to me, it's another situation of a GM thinking they're smarter than everybody else. And at the end, we'll see. Maybe they have the last laugh, but right now it doesn't seem like it.
Let's be real here. They added Darius Slay. Good for them. That secondary is still abysmal. That was
they lost Malcolm Jenkins.
Awful secondary last year. And quite frankly, in my opinion, losing Jenkins to add Slay is a wash. It's an absolute wash. So you didn't get any better. The fact that you could have added I think you could have added like a Jalen Johnson or Marcus Fulton. You could have added a pretty top-end corner here. But instead you decided to go and take a backup to your 27-year-old quarterback.
Denzel Mims was still available at that point in time. You could have had 2 young, dynamic wide receivers. You could have paired them with Alshon, who's kind of been on the out. so it seems, and Deshaun Jackson if he comes back healthy. So you could have had 3 guys. Granted, 2 of them would have been rookies, and then you have Zach Ertz and Miles Sanders. Like, you would have had a serviceable offense. Instead, you drafted a guy that's not going to play for you unless something tragic happens. If he's playing for you, you're not in your best situation.
You know who it feels like made that pick for the Eagles there?
Star Lamar, because he hates NDSU.
No, it feels like Gage made that pick. Gage drafted Hurts, banking on Wentz getting injured.
That's very true. Gage does play that injury bug a little bit more. So maybe that's why he didn't want to be on here tonight. He knew he was going to get ripped for his bad pick as the Eagles GM. But nonetheless, it was bad.
Well, whether he's here to defend himself or not, I'm calling him out because that was a total Gage's rage pick right there. Let's touch on the Minnesota Vikings draft tonight. To me, it doesn't get my pants as tight as last night did. Last night, I was full bore, ready to rock. Tonight, it feels like I got a little bit left in the tank. And I think when you're talking 13 picks tomorrow, they're going to be trading up a lot, I feel like. And I bet you they end up making maybe 6 or 7 of those. I don't think they make all 13.
You can't keep all 13 on your team. I mean, that's if a third of your roster is rookies, it's not going to be very good for you. You don't want that. You need a few more veterans. I don't know exactly where we stand with everything. I know tonight we got Ezra Cleveland, who's solid. It was a good pick. We were both happy with it. Sounds like he's a guy that's going to be a little bit of a project. Depending on how Reef plays, maybe he steps in for Reef earlier on. O'Neill's been very good for us the last couple of years. I don't even think he let up a sack at all last year, and I think he was one of the lowest in pressures in the NFL too. So solid right tackle. So he's most likely going to be moving to the left side of the ball. I like it. Josh Jones was available, but I thought either way, I was going to be happy with that pick.
And to me, I trust the Vikings. When you have Josh Jones and Ezra Cleveland on the board, I trust them to make the right pick. Ezra Cleveland, to me, quite honestly, reminds me a lot of Brian O'Neill. When the Vikings drafted O'Neill in the second 2 years ago, everybody was like, what are you doing? This guy won't be ready for 3 years. And he came in, blew the doors off the place. He was a little bit he was able to get pushed around a little bit his rookie year. So coming into his sophomore year, he bulked up, put on some weight, and he was very, very, very good last year. Ezra Cleveland reminds me of that. If you end up playing him this year, he's going to get bullied a little bit, but hopefully he can hold his own like O'Neill, and then he's only going to get better. I love the pick. I really do. But I'd also like to say regarding him, the feeling on Vikings Twitter was picking him closes the door on Trent Williams. And we both share the same opinion here. This by no means closes the door on Trent Williams. You can definitely still trade for Trent Williams and use Ezra Cleveland as an absolute high-end project to groom to eventually take over for him. And I don't know where the Vikings stand on the Trent Williams thing. Last thing I heard, Washington was being very, very tough to deal with. So the Vikings may just walk away from it, which if they do that, that's fine too. But drafting Ezra Cleveland kind of gives you that insurance policy to where if you do walk away, you still have something to work with for a potential plan 2 to 3 years down the road for a starting left tackle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think it closes the door at all on Williams. We have 13 picks. Granted, not all of them are high-end picks, but to get maybe 2 fourth-round picks for Trent Williams, I think that's a no-brainer for Washington to do that. The guy does not want to play for your organization. He refuses to play. And frankly, I don't really blame him after everything that happened to him. Maybe he's blowing it a little bit out of the water, but he's not happy and he doesn't want to play for you. So you might as well get rid of him, and asking for too much is only going to make things worse, because if nobody takes him and he doesn't play for you, you're in a worse spot than taking a lower draft pick than what you wanted to get rid of him.
Yep, definitely. The other draft pick that the Vikings made was a guy by the name of Cameron Dantzler, who's a cornerback out of Mississippi State. He measures in at 6'2", 188 pounds, He's big, lengthy. His big downfall is he did run a 4.64 40, which is quite slow. And that's the big red flag on him is his 40 time was slow. People that are high on him would say he plays faster than that, which that's a thing people talk about. Oh, he plays faster than his 40 time. 40 doesn't mean everything, but when it's 4.64 for a corner, it does raise your eyebrows a little bit. With that being said, he is 6'2". He's only 188, so he could probably put on 10 pounds. But if it impacts his speed, you don't want that. To me, he's the absolute shoe-in to take over the Rhodes role at some point down the road, where he ends up matching up on the biggest receiver on the other team, and is kind of used to help maintain and kind of lock them down. I like the pick, but it's going to be a project. Zimmer loves a good cornerback with size, so I think he'll try to make it work. But for a third-round pick, it's kind of we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I didn't know much about the guy. So from what I read, he had a bad showing at the combine, and obviously his 40 time played a big role into that. Like you said, 4.64 is not fast, especially for a corner. But I do agree. I think that there is something to be said about players playing faster than like when they're running their combine and doing stuff like that. When you throw those pads on, you have a different mentality. If this guy can flip a switch, well, fuck. I mean, he could run, with the best of them, even running a 4.640 at the combine. So I'm not super worried about that as long as the rest of his skills are manageable. I mean, you can't teach size. So being 6'2", he can be a big kind of shutdown corner if he can stay disciplined. And Zimmer is a guy who loves defensive backs. He's going to be able to groom that. He's going to find a way to put him in the best position as long as he's willing to stick to the plan. So I like the pick. We needed a third corner. We needed to add somebody else. After losing 3 this past year, we couldn't rely just on Rhodes and Gladney. So I'm glad we picked up somebody. Hopefully he pans out.
A couple other notes I'd like to make regarding him. He allowed 43% of passes thrown his way to be caught in his entire college career, and he allowed a passer rating of 44. So the guy's proven he can game. And let's remember here, the team that he played for in college is no pushover. I mean, he played at Mississippi State. It's not like he was a Division II Boise or even a Boise State college. He played in a good conference, played good competition, and he played well. One other thing that I had seen on Twitter, if I could find it really quick, was something along the lines of a scout that worked with let me see if I can find it here really quick. It was something to the effect of a scout that worked with him at the combine, as well as I think it was Rhodes and one other cornerback, said Dantzler has every chance to be as much as they were, if not more, because of his competitiveness and his gamer mentality. So when you're talking about that from a third round pick, it really kind of eases your worries just from the sense of, okay, this guy has something and he's got the size. So I like the pick. It adds depth at cornerback, which the Vikings needed very badly. And now we're looking to tomorrow after trading out of pick 105, with which we picked up 4 picks for that. We look at tomorrow and we have 13 picks currently going into tomorrow. So I think it's going to be a lot of fireworks from the Vikings. I would assume a lot of moving up, moving around. And like I said, I think you probably only end up making 6 or 7 of those picks. But I think of the 13, if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 6 of those are 7th rounders. So you could really use those 7th rounders as flyers on guys that you don't want to have to call after the draft is over and compete with other teams for a UDFA contract or an undrafted free agent contract. And you can just sign them with one of those 7s, draft them, and if they don't work out for you, cut them.
Yeah, and if you don't have anybody that you really want at that spot, try and trade them for a next year's pick. You might be able to get a next year's 6th rounder for it or something. And I mean, it's the what is it, like the paperclip effect? The guy had the paperclip and trade the paperclip for a roll of tape, and then trade the roll of tape for a stack of papers, and the stack of papers for a hammer, and like you just keep working your way up. So accumulate those things and just keep moving. I like Spielman. I like him getting all the picks. It's fun. Let's just hope he does something with them.
One funny soundbite coming out of him after the draft was over tonight on his conference call with the media. He said, "Yeah, I don't really think we can afford to trade back tomorrow just because of all the picks they have." Really quick for note, coming into tomorrow, the Vikings currently stand with 3 4th-rounders, picks 117, 130, and 132 in the fourth. 3 5th-rounders, 155, 169, 176. 3 6th-rounders, 201, 203, and 205. So you have 3 picks within 5 picks there from 201 to 205. So you really be able to do some damage. And then 4 7th-rounders, 219, 244, 249, 253.
So it's spread out fairly well. I like that. It's better than 6 picks in the 7th round.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be nothing but fireworks tomorrow from the purple. I think they've had a fairly good draft so far, and if they close it out strong tomorrow, you're going to be walking away thinking, all right, let's do this. Let's get ready for the season. Especially
since the other teams in our division did not get better. It definitely makes you feel a little bit better knowing that we filled some holes and some needs that we had where our opponents didn't really do that.
And there's something to be said too. I mean, and we'll get into this a little bit more tomorrow night on day 3 of the Budhole breakdowns of the NFL virtual draft, when we kind of go through the overall summarization of every team and kind of who we think won, lost. I don't think it's necessary for us to do tonight a winner and loser from tonight because it's kind of the middle of the draft. It's not really requisite to give a winner and loser grade to. But we will do that tomorrow night. We'll give our winners and losers from the draft. And, of course, we'll talk Monday. We'll talk about Monday everything with the rest of the guys. Gage and Star will be back Monday with us. And I'm really excited to kind of see what they have to say and really run a true summation of the entire draft and talk it over with those guys.
I'd say a couple things I want to touch on here before we take off. In the 3rd round, Cardinals got Josh Jones. So they ended up getting a tackle, and a solid tackle at that. There's a lot of people that wanted the Vikings to take him at 22 or 25. We passed on him. He fell into the 3rd round. I think that's a solid pickup for them to get a guy that had 1st-round potential. So kind of makes that Isaiah Simmons pick a little bit even more of a no-brainer, even though that was a solid pick, in my opinion. Saints get the Wisconsin linebacker, Zach Bond. I think it's Bond. That's really Bond. The only way you can pronounce that one, which was a solid pick. They got him at pick 10 in the 3rd round. So that definitely helps them out. A lot of people had him taking like Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen in the 1st round. And so they ended up getting one of the top end linebacker talents in the 3rd. And then the Falcons took Matt Hennessy. Nothing special about that except for his name. So that's kind of neat. Otherwise, one thing I noticed, and I just kind of put it together a little bit ago, the Patriots are kind of doing what John Lynch did. It's get better at the position, at your strength. Their strength is their defense. They don't have Brady anymore. Going to be relying on either a young quarterback or a guy coming in if they do make a trade for somebody like Andy Dalton, or they bring in Cam Newton if they can make the money work out. But they drafted a safety. They drafted Josh Uche, a linebacker, and I don't remember if they had a 1st-round pick. Did they trade out to get into the 2nd round?
Correct. They traded back, yep.
So they've been taking defensive players, and they've been getting stronger at what they're already strong at. So people are counting the Patriots out, but if you can't score on them, all they have to do is score a couple of touchdowns. So I'd still watch out. There's still somebody to fear.
One thing I will say regarding New England, I think they had a very good night tonight. I think they did great. They got a pair of outside linebackers to help get younger on defense. And one thing that I found interesting is the ever chameleon-like Patriots ended up double dipping on tight ends in the 3rd round and drafted UCLA's Devin Asiasi and Virginia Tech's Dalton Keene, both in the third round. Both are tight ends with upside. I could definitely see New England transition more into a power football type offense and play really, really strong defense type of game.
And not to mention, I guess, question for you. What was a better moment in the draft? Was that when Bill Belichick's dog made the second round pick for him? Or was that when Roger Goodell pronounced it Gross Matos?
Personally, I got more of a chuckle out of Gross Matos, but just the fact of every time they panned over to Belichick, he seemed like he was absolutely trolling by either giving his dog a treat or setting his dog up with the laptop so he could see the screen, getting him ready to make the next pick for the Patriots. But I'll tell you what, I think Green Bay should give that dog a call because that thing has way more of a clue what's going on than that front office.
It's funny because Belichick is sitting there and he looks like he's drafting in a home that was built in the early 1800s. And then you pan to every other coach and GM, and they're drafted in what looks like a multi-million-dollar mansion with beautiful backyards and nice patios and a nice-ass fireplace. And Belichick is sitting here in his old fucking Rambler with his pooch sitting in his chair and his Mac computer. Like, that he probably doesn't even know how to run. So
Who's having the dog do it?
he trolled the fuck out of us tonight, and I loved it. People may hate on the guy, but he's funny. He's got a sense of humor.
It looks like he still has the same house that he had that he bought right after he got fired in Cleveland and had no money.
He was just banking on not being that good, so he's like, I better not upgrade.
Yep.
Fuck, shit might not go my way. It's like Warren Buffett. That dude lives in like the same house he bought in the 70s.
That's so crazy.
He's one of the richest people in the world.
Well, for him, he's never home. What does it matter?
Yeah, it's true. Very true.
He probably lives at the office, quite honestly.
Yeah. I've read up on him a little bit. He's an interesting dude. He's short as fuck, though. It's like 5'9".
Is he really?
I think he's shorter than that. He's a very, very short dude.
Smart as hell, though.
Yeah, he invested at the right time, that's for sure. Buffett, let's see, height.
Yeah, 5'10".
Oh, 5'10"? Yeah.
Jesus, dude. Bezos is only 5'7". Bill Gates is only 5'10". What's up with short dudes?
Elon Musk is 6'2".
That's my problem. I'm tall.
Fucking 5'7" for Jeff Bezos.
Short little fuck.
No wonder his wife left him.
Yeah, I would leave that too. Especially if you look like that.
Looks like he's in 5th grade, except with the head of a 60-year-old.
He looks like his growth spurt ran away from him.
He looks like he stuck his head in a kiln.
Oh, God.
Yeah, good for him.
Well, I suppose that probably wraps up this night 2 of the NFL Virtual Draft Budhole Breakdowns. Be sure to check back with us tomorrow night as we break down rounds 4 through 7 and give you our thoughts regarding the draft. And then check us out Monday night again, obviously, when we'll post it Tuesday and Wednesday. But check us out Monday when we get all back together and break it down as a group.
Yeah, and listen, we are going to be looking for some more content ideas. We have a lot of fun ones Scott and I talked about tonight, coming up different conspiracy theories, different serial killers, different types of things that are going on in the world. So if you have anything, just shoot us up. Hit us up with an email, officialbudhole@gmail.com, Instagram @officialbudhole. If we ever get Twitter back, which I'm hopeful we will. If we don't, fuck you, Twitter. But that's @officialbudhole as well. So hit us up on any of our platforms. Let us know if there's anything specific you'd like to hear about or a hot take that you may have that you want us to discuss. So we're open to any and all suggestions.
We definitely are. We love your input, and we definitely take it very seriously. And we have no problem bringing it up on the show and kind of kicking the tires on what you have.
Yeah, and with that, I would just say, do what you can, help prevent cancer, go jerk off.
And have an absolute blessed night.
You know what? Camping. I like having sex in tents. It's fucking intense.
It's fucking intense. Love it. Bye.
Bye.